Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little while since I've posted, but college life has definitely gotten the best of me. I've been really busy with exams and assignments and work and just so many other things. But today I'm back to talk about a really interesting topic. So let's get right into it. So I first downloaded TikTok about late 2019, early 2020, right before the pandemic happened. And I remember getting addicted so fast, so quickly, because I was someone who always struggled to find a sense of community on social media and in real life. I was that person that was doing my own thing in school, and social media, just by hashtags and algorithm, was aligning me with people that had the same interests as me, loved the same things as me, and wanted to talk about the same issues that I did. So really quickly, TikTok was my safe haven, and I made plenty of embarrassing, cringy videos that all of us do at some point. And really quickly though, towards the later part of 2020, TikTok became more of a nuisance in my life. It became a platform where I was stuck on it for hours and hours a day, and I just felt less and less fulfilled and happy with where I was, who I was with by the time I got off the app. A lot of time went by, and despite all the amazing things I learned about events and books and met really cool people and got to share my life with my followers or whoever was watching, I realized how toxic TikTok had become. It had completely warped my perception of myself. It created insecurities I didn't even know were possible things to be insecure about. It made insecurities that I didn't even know existed. And every week it felt like I liked myself less and less the more time I spent on social media. Some people that didn't like me had found my content and spread it around the school, and I got made fun of for that. Even though it was nothing controversial, I was just doing creative things, and I just felt it really sucking up my time, and I felt like a slave to my phone, and I hated that feeling. And I was walking around being someone who, this was very early on in my self-help journey, someone who was preaching doing the right things and living a healthy lifestyle, and yet I was using one of the biggest catalysts for insecurity and depression and anxiety. Specifically, I can say TikTok specifically really romanticizes misery and depression and anxiety and self-harm. I absolutely believe that TikTok made me feel as though my issues and struggles were not valid unless I had some really horrific self-harm scars to show for it. And I think, as someone who is a writer and a poet and does romanticize the sad things in life sometimes, because that's where some of my best creation comes from, is suffering, it made me view it in like I was nothing without my pain. I was nothing without the terrible things that had happened to me. And so with TikTok, I used it as an excuse to stay where I was, which was very extremely depressed, pursuing toxic situationships, not caring about my grades, alienating myself from my family. It was just that aesthetic of, oh, I want to distance myself from everyone and be like all those depressed fashionista it girls on my For You page, because they just make it seem like that's the only way to be. If you're not depressed or suffering, if you don't know the reality of the world, then you're just an NPC or someone who doesn't understand the way things work. And it was just, for me, it was more about the aesthetics that were really romanticized, that were really harmful. Domestic abuse, toxic relationships are incredibly normalized on TikTok. And also this idea of, I've talked about this in one of my other videos, this idea of like relationships, if he wanted to, he would. I honestly think I would not view relationships with, I mean, I've improved since deleting TikTok, but there are some ideals and standards that are completely disgustingly unrealistic to hold anybody to, not just men, that altered my brain chemistry. Just the way that and the users on TikTok try to make it seem as though everything is black and white and that there's no nuance to our world. If you support this person, I can't talk to you, I can't be friends with you because it doesn't align with this. If you have this value and I disagree with that, but you agree with all my other values, I can't be in your life because you don't agree with the one thing I say. The echo chamber, the political beliefs that were planted in my head that I didn't even really agree with because of social media, specifically TikTok, was astounding. The amount of arguments I had at the dinner table with family members over things that now years later I realize we agree on is just really astounding. And I wish, and I know we all feel this way, I really wish that I could go back and have never downloaded it in the first place at all. That was the biggest mistake I could have made. And so it's 4 years since I deleted it, because I deleted it in 2021. It's been 4 years, and let me tell you, it has been one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I don't use social media. Obviously, I have a YouTube channel. I get stuck on YouTube Shorts sometimes. I have an Instagram, and I do get stuck on Reels a lot, which is actually one of my tips we're going to talk about later on how to combat that. So I do participate in social media. And I think it can be a great way to connect with other people, find people that are in communities that you would like to be a part of. It's a great way to learn about certain things you may not know very much about in short, digestible pieces. However, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, you need to delete TikTok. You've definitely watched a video like that before. You already know that you should, but you just can't really seem to part with it. And I think one of the biggest reasons why people struggle to delete TikTok specifically, even some people in my life, I can attest to this personally, is because the silence is just too loud. Those moments where you are forced to just sit with your brain and think about the things you have done, or the things you may have not done, or the person you want to be, or the person you are now, that is terrifying to most of us. To sit in that and have to address all those thoughts that we spend all day pushing away, because that's what TikTok is endless noise to distract ourselves from the insane state that the world is in right now, as well as it distracts us from having to address the things we don't want to address within ourselves, or maybe the situation in our lives. TikTok, phones in general, are just as much of an addictive drug as anything else, any other addiction. Phone addiction is a real thing. Don't invalidate your struggles. You are allowed to admit that you are a little bit addicted, and you're afraid. That's okay, because that's where I was. I was afraid to sit with this discontent and disappointment that I had with myself about the way my life was going, and instead I just devoured depressing audio after depressing audio, aesthetic video after aesthetic video, to try to push everything away and cope. So I think that's the biggest thing, because we have stopped getting to know ourselves in this modern world, in this generation. All we know is the constant content that's pushing our faces, even on TV, advertisements, everywhere you go, billboards, everything is telling you who you should want to be. Not who you should be, who you should want to be, because it sells a product. TikTok is constantly telling you all these things that you should believe, all these things that you should be doing with your life. You should be accomplishing this by this age. You should have this kind of partner by this age. You should have this kind of pet. This is how you should care for that pet. Just all these different opinions coming together, creating an echo chamber, instead of you sitting down and asking yourself, wait a minute, is this what I want? Because seeing a lot of, I know for a while, I have digital marketing all over my TikTok For You page. It was a huge thing. It was when it was just blowing up. And it was constantly like, if you're not monetizing your social media, you're wasting your time. What if I don't want to monetize my social media? But after about 300 TikToks about how I should want that, I started to question, do I want that? And now all this time later, the answer was no. I never wanted that in the first place, but all these influencers and people are telling me I should want that. And that is one of the most damaging things about TikTok. Hi, sorry about that little mix-up. My camera battery died while I was in the middle of filming, so this is a while later since that last clip. But we're gonna pretend like it's the same day. And I'm just gonna keep going with my points about TikTok. There is time for the things that you want to do.
the things like your hobbies, hanging out with friends, improving your relationships, there is time for that. But because of how much time I was spending on TikTok, I was getting stuck just scrolling when those valuable hours I could have been putting towards things that I actually wanted to do. So when I finally did delete TikTok and put down the screen, I realized that those pockets of time that seemed to always be elusive and escape me were actually right in front of my face. It was the 30 minutes that I first woke up, the 2 hours I spent scrolling before I went to bed, all the time I couldn't find to listen to affirmations. Instead of watching a YouTube video or something like that in the shower, I could have put on affirmations right outside the shower and listened to them there. The 5 minutes of meditation, instead of scrolling on my phone while on the shuttle on the way to school every day, I could have used that 15-minute ride to do that 5-minute meditation and the 10-minute visualization. There are little pockets of time, even for those of us that are extremely busy. And when you get home at the end of the day, all you do is want to just crash. All you want to do is just crash, get home and scroll on your phone all day. You just want to turn off your brain and not think about anything. And I can understand that because that's exactly how I feel. A lot of times when I get home from class, the last thing I want to do is work out or do a puzzle or even reading, which is my favorite hobby, is really hard for me to get myself to sit down and do sometimes. But I'm telling you, and I think you already know this, that when you do decide to do the scrolling instead of those hobbies, you don't feel fulfilled by that whatsoever. You do not feel good after that scrolling. You just feel even worse, and you're even harder on yourself for not having the balls to actually sit down and stick with the goals that you've set for yourself and that you have every resource and reason to stick to. So I can tell you in my own experience that once I deleted TikTok, I just noticed I was just sitting in bed and looking up at the ceiling wondering, oh my gosh, I'm bored. What am I gonna do? I might as well go finally get started on that book I wanted to read. Or maybe I should reach out to that friend I haven't talked to in a while and schedule a meeting for coffee. I could probably get ahead on that assignment that's due in a few weeks so that when the time comes, I'm not stressed about it. I could meal prep for the weeks because I could meal prep for the coming week because I know my habits, and if I have food that's ready to just heat up and go, I'm less likely to binge or eat something that doesn't align with my goals. Those little short periods of time that make such a huge difference in the choices that we make every single day. Those minutes, seconds, hours, days that are lost to scrolling. You may want to turn your brain off, but in reality, it doesn't even leave you feeling with the feeling you're searching for while you're doing it. But I can tell you that when I put on a YouTube video or a podcast or a show or a movie or an audiobook, and then I sit down and do that puzzle or the craft I've been wanting to do for a while, or a creative journal or scrapbooking, that helps me feel fulfilled because I'm honoring the promises that I made to myself. And I just really honestly noticed that all the times I kept complaining that I don't have time for anything, simply, in my case personally, just wasn't true. I did have the time, and it was being stolen from me by social media. Again, specifically TikTok. I'm not going to sit here and rattle off statistics to you about how much of your life is being wasted by using your phone in general and not just TikTok, because you've already seen those videos a million times over and they clearly didn't work, because why else would you be here? What piece of information do you think I'm going to tell you that's any different than the other creators you've heard? You already know all the answers and you're tired of hearing that. So let me just phrase it this way. You are not missing anything. I think that is the biggest thing that I wish someone had told me earlier on. I had this feeling that if I didn't have TikTok on my phone and I wasn't sending my friends videos, that I would be missing something. I'd be missing out on some vital pieces of culture that my generation was experiencing, and then all of a sudden the jokes I made wouldn't make sense or something like that, or I wouldn't know about events that I could have possibly wanted to live and experience. But this kind of comes into the idea that everything that is meant for you will find you, and I absolutely do believe in that. However, I promise you, there is nothing that TikTok, I can tell you looking back, could have taught me that I wasn't already going to learn by real life experiences. And just because someone on a TikTok video tells you something, it's not going to hit you with the same level of gravity as experiencing it yourself. I could watch a million TikTok videos about friends betraying me and think I know what that feels like, but you do not know what that feels like until you experience that yourself. No amount of warning or aesthetic slideshows or depressing audios are going to make you understand the things, the good and bad things that you will or will not experience. There is nothing to miss on TikTok other than, sure, some funny videos here and there and maybe some cool events, but if you're meant to go to those events will find you and you will make your way there. And there's truly nothing else to miss but just more insecurity, more unhappiness, a smaller attention span, less time spent with your friends and family. That time is so limited. And looking back, I can't imagine the amount of time I've wasted sitting on my phone, numbing my brain and rotting it, when I could have been sitting downstairs watching a movie with my parents who aren't going to live forever, or stopped at my grandma's house and had a cup of tea and talked with her about her life and her experiences, or finally gotten up the courage to hang out with that group of guys that I always wanted to, and go out and experience things for real, or maybe start up a conversation with someone on the bus, but instead I was focused on my phone. All those things, that's what you're really missing out on. You're not missing out on what's on TikTok. You're missing out on everything else that is real and tangible and right around you. I'm not going to try to downplay the positives to TikTok. I did find a lot of really cool things while I was on there, and it was definitely an outlet for me doing the little creative POV video creations that I did back in the day, because it was a creative outlet for me. But now I've channeled that energy into better things like this YouTube channel, or teaching journaling classes, or becoming a volleyball coach, or just creative journaling on my own time. And I can tell you from experience, all those motivational videos that tell you to get up and stop wasting your life, you and I both know, we all know that everyone just scrolls right past those videos. Those aren't doing it for you. And if that's your entire For You page, again, it's clearly not working. Why do we keep going back to platforms that just make us feel even worse about ourselves? And I think there's something to say about our insecurities being confirmed and verified that makes us feel like we're right. Like I've talked about many times before on this channel, the human brain wants to be correct. Confirmation bias. It wants to be proved that your preconceived notions about yourself are correct. So if you go, at the end of the day, and you go sit on TikTok like you do every other day, let's say, and you see all these things saying, oh, I'm wasting my life, and I'm sitting here and I'm in class and I should be out living my life, and oh my gosh, it's such a waste and I hate the way this world works. All those things are going to come into your brain, and then your brain's going to interpret that as, we were right, we are a loser, we do just waste our lives doing nothing, instead of actually going out and doing something about it. There are only so many videos you can watch about what to do and how to get up and go live your life versus the change that actually living it makes. There is no amount of content you can consume that will make your life perfect. One of my favorite pieces of advice from a really huge author that I saw in a master class one time. He was saying, you can plan your book all you want. You can do all the right techniques and all the Pinterest boards and all the Spotify playlists and all these things, but nothing is going to teach you how to be a better writer than to actually just write. Just go out there and live your life. Fail, screw up, look stupid sometimes. Who cares? If you spend your entire life trying to look or be a certain way, you're never going to experience anything. You have to be a beginner. You have to be willing to be a beginner to eventually become a master. Sitting in your room and thinking about all the things you want to do instead of slowly taking steps to create those opportunities you want is not going to give you the life that you really want. TikTok steals your time by selling you these dreams and visions and affirmations of things that you want without telling you the actual cure. All those courses that you see, I will save you hundreds of thousands of dollars and tell you exactly what the answer is to all those courses you want to take right now. Just get up and do it. That's it. Get up, go out there, play the piano, play it off key 1,000,000 times until you get that one note right. Go to a boxing class and fall over when you kick the bag the first time and get back up and try again. Go rock climbing and be so disgustingly sore the next day that you can't even think about going back, but you do it anyway. Try making healthy food, burn it, throw it out, and try it again. Talk to someone, ask for their number, get rejected, brush it off, and go again. There is no secret to life. There is no perfect way of doing things that will get you the outcome that you want. And I think that's what's beautiful about life, is that there is no perfect way to do it. No matter what day it is, whoever is doing it, everyone's going to experience it differently. So go out there and leave your mark on the world. Stop letting these giant business moguls steal away the most valuable thing you have, which is your choice and your time. When I got rid of TikTok, instead of watching videos about going on hikes, I actually got off my butt and went on hikes. Instead of worrying about being rejected, I actually went out and got phone numbers of people I thought were attractive that ended up just turning into fulfilling friendships instead of worrying about being perfectly chalant or nonchalant or doing the right thing. There is no right way to be you. Just be you. Stop worrying so much about the technicality of it and just go out there and experience it. TikTok will steal that from you, telling you that, well, you have to do all this before you can even go out and try. Don't worry about perfecting it. Go out and try and then use the techniques to do something better. The less I was on TikTok, the less insecure I was. And 2 videos ago, I made a video about the importance of your appearance and the importance of taking care of yourself and how much it can affect your mindset as a person. But I can tell you, the less time I spend on social media, especially TikTok, the less insecure I am, because I get my phone out of the AI created screen of all these perfect men and women looking a certain way, even though it's literally their job to look that way, and they literally spend all day looking that way, to actually seeing the average person around me and seeing the beauty in all of these everyday people. That is the reality of the population, not those 1 in a million unbelievably lucky, attractive people who most likely eat 500 calories a day, spend 8,000 days a week in the gym, and have so many products on their face and on their bodies that you can't even tell, minus all the editing that's probably there too. And seeing the reality of the world. Think about all the people you love more than anything. Would you love them any less or any more if they looked any different? No. When I got off TikTok, I realized that my appearance was formed by 2 people who loved each other more than anything and dedicated themselves to creating another being on this planet. And what is ugly about that? Tell me a single thing that is ugly about you, about your creation. What, because some skincare company wants you to believe that there's something wrong with your skin so you can buy their product? Some hair care company wants you to think that your hair doesn't look nice enough so you need to buy their $150 scalp oil to make it look better? This clothing company thinks that you're not wearing flattering enough clothes because they want to convince you to buy their clothes, which will somehow magically fix all your problems and make every person you've ever found attractive approach you. When you say it in the reality of what it is, it's ridiculous, okay? TikTok makes you insecure. Society makes you insecure to sell you a product. And when you wake up after a long time of not having social media, you realize, after all, you know what? I actually do like myself. I actually do like what I look like. And that stems from having good habits and taking care of yourself and doing what makes you feel good. Not what gets the most likes and shares and comments and follows, but what makes you feel good. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you that there isn't a thing as being conventionally attractive. Absolutely there is. And there are some people out there who are just beautifully gifted and are some ethereal beings. Truly. That's just the basic truth. I'm not going to lie to you, okay? But you beating yourself up and thinking about how great they are is not gonna make your life better in any sense, okay? We need to release our obsession with other people's appearances and other people's lives and become obsessed with our own lives and doing everything we can to live a fulfilling life. when I decentered people who, when I finally got rid of TikTok, I really understood that all those videos that people made when they were, with a lot of makeup or like just thirst traps and things like that, that also comes from a place of insecurity in them. Those people can be insecure too, as outrageous as it seems for us to believe. I've seen so many interviews with Megan Fox and Adriana Lima saying things like they never thought that they were attractive. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I know this in my personal experience, and I know some girlies out there can agree with this. All the guys that I've dated or I thought were attractive, if I show them to like my brothers or my friends, they're like, girl, what are you thinking? But to me, that person is beautiful. It's so subjective. So stop worrying about what everybody else thinks is attractive and ask yourself, what makes me feel good? What do I feel more confident in? And as you decenter attractiveness and that whole market, and once you're off TikTok, you'll realize that you've always been beautiful. You're just finally waking up and noticing it. And there will be this moment of clarity where you regret all the time that you spent beating yourself up once you realize how fast time is moving and how you won't look like even what you look like now forever. And you just want to hold on to your present self with both hands and give it everything you have to appreciate it, because even this is temporary. Even those moments of feeling good are temporary. So when you realize how temporary everything is, you start to appreciate those good moments even more. So getting rid of TikTok without a doubt made me far less insecure than I was, because I wasn't constantly comparing myself to figments of the imagination. Most of those videos are not even reality. I also got much better sleep with TikTok. Without TikTok, I was always someone who prioritized sleep. I never really struggled to fall asleep, other than there are times where I'm really stressed out and I'm overthinking about something that, sure, I do struggle to fall asleep or stay asleep sometimes. But it was the times that I was falling asleep that were improved so much. I would say my average bedtime is usually around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I naturally wake up around 7:30, 8 o'clock every day. But when I was on TikTok, it was 12, 1, 2 a.m., sometimes 3. Again, just scrolling. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I'm not on my phone before I go to bed anymore, because that would just not be true. I am on my phone before I go to sleep still. But even still, without the constant short form content to distract me, I lose interest. I truly do. I lose interest in being on my phone. So I just put on my meditation music or my podcast and I fall asleep. So understand that lack of distraction will allow you to get much better sleep, because while it is frightening at first, you do have to sit in the silence a little bit and deal with your thoughts. Going to sleep is one of my favorite times of the day, because I can finally, I like to think of my brain as a big box of crumpled up papers, and all the little crumpled up papers are thoughts that I've had throughout the day. And usually all day I'm too busy to focus on that. So I crumple them up and I throw them into the box, and then when it's time to go to sleep, I pull that box out in front of me and I take out each thought one at a time, and I uncrumple the paper and I read it and I address each thought, and if there's a solution, I make a plan while I'm trying to fall asleep to deal with it the next day. Overall, just dealing with the thoughts in general, just addressing them one by one, coming up with solutions, or even just thinking and dismissing some of those thoughts. Some of those thoughts are incredibly insecure things, or they're unpleasant memories that come up that my brain wants to criticize myself for, even though I was literally 9 years old in that memory. And then I can take that time to be honest with my brain and tell it, hey, this is irrelevant, this is not who I am anymore, I forgive myself for what happened, and I need to move on. And then that thought goes away. But if you're constantly overstimulating your brain with information 24/7 with things like TikTok, you don't get that space to clear out your mind. And so everything from that day sits in that box and piles up and up and up. And the next morning, that box is still there. But guess what? Now you're adding in another box with even more things. You're not giving yourself the time to process all of the thoughts you're actually having. And that's why I enjoy journaling so much, especially just like stream of consciousness journaling, where I literally just write paragraphs and paragraphs or of any thoughts that I'm thinking throughout the day, things I need to do. I'll show you, this is my current journal right now. This is just an example of what one of my plain pages look like Or one of my favorite things to do is a little exercise called the thought storm cloud. And sometimes if I'm waking up feeling a little bit overwhelmed, that's the first thing I'll do, is I'll just write out everything that I feel like I need to address immediately today. Every single thought that's going through my brain that I feel like needs to be dealt with. And then I go and I write down the storm cloud, and then as I'm dealing with them, I cross them off. That, for me, having a visual explanation of all my thoughts out in front of me makes it a lot easier for me to deal with the things that are on my mind. But with TikTok on your phone, you don't have that time, that connection with your brain, to stop viewing your brain as an enemy and instead as a friend, as a supercomputer that is trying to make sure you stay safe and healthy and happy. So that's another reason, is sleep specifically. I also think with deleting TikTok, I realized that being social with people is a lot less scary than we think it is, and it's a lot easier to improve and create relationships with the people in our lives or people that we run into every day. I had a lot more engaging conversations when my dad comes home from work. Instead of sitting on my phone on the counter and not really paying attention while he's talking to me, I actively engage with him and discuss his day, because the people in your lives' feelings are just as important as yours, and cultivating those feelings by having open, honest conversations and being a good listener is an incredible way to keep those people in your life. Instead of scrolling on TikTok, sometimes I'll call someone when I miss them instead of just thinking about them. I'll send them a text, be like, hey, I'm thinking about you, let's catch up, things like that. And when I'm out at bookstores or I see someone's outfit, instead of scrolling on my phone while I'm online for a coffee or whatever it is, I actually tap that person on the shoulder and compliment them when I feel like complimenting them. It's just a lot less scary. The less time I spend on my phone, the more I realize we're all in the same boat here. We're all just as confused about the way that the world works and where things are going. And sometimes even a little compliment like that can absolutely change someone's day, or even their week, or even how they perceive themselves in general. Go out of your way to comment on a book that on a product that someone's picking out on the shelf that you're like, hey, I played that game, or it was so much fun, or wow, I really like that top, but I think this one would look better. And next thing, you're striking up a conversation. And I can say that in my experience, when I was studying abroad in Italy, I was in one of my favorite bookstores, it was called Odeon, and it was like this big theater, this old-timey theater that had been reconstructed into a bookstore. Oh my god, I miss that place so much. I would love to go back one day. But I saw these two French girls, mind you, so they're not even speaking my language. They're having a conversation about what books they're gonna read, but I noticed they were in the English book section, so I was like, maybe they can speak English. And the two of them were deciding between what books to pick, and I had read both. So I, being more confident now that I didn't have TikTok, I went up and I tapped them on the shoulder and I said, hi, and I said, oh, this book is better for this reason. We started chatting, and we hit it off so well that we actually decided to purchase our books, and we walked all the way across the city to go sit at a coffee shop and talk about ourselves and our lives. And turns out they were exchange students from France and had come to Italy to learn Italian, and we started talking in Italian, and I got both their numbers. I went out to clubs with them throughout the next few months several times. I still talk to them every day. I'm even planning to go visit them in Paris. Lovely girls, really, I miss them, and I hope if they're watching this, I hope you guys see this. Just that small little experience, just because I got rid of TikTok and I learned to be more socially confident. Now I had this amazing experience and I talk to these wonderful girls all the time, all because I realized that we're all people and no one is too good for you to have a conversation with them. So that's just a simple example, and I've had many more examples over the years since then. But all in all, I would say that TikTok is really genuinely just a tool to keep us distracted and dissatisfied and to keep us from living the lives that we always dream about living. It keeps that dream out of reach. And I promise you, if you just put your phone down, delete TikTok, you will realize that all the things you want are not nearly as far away and unreachable as you think they are, and they're absolutely achievable. So delete TikTok, decrease your screen time, get up, go talk to that person in your class you've been thinking about talking to. Have that conversation with the cash register person. Dedicate yourself to your academics. Really pay attention in class. Don't bring your devices to your classes if you can. Take handwritten notes. Prioritize yourself. Forgive yourself for the things that you haven't done yet, and realize that you're still so young. Today is the youngest you will ever be for the rest of your life. So you might as well go out and do those things instead of thinking about the right way to do them. Everyone had to be a beginner at something to eventually become a master. You deserve to pursue your dreams just as much as anybody else out there in the world. And I promise you that it's possible, and I'm telling you because it was possible for me, and I promise you can do it too. Thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. I'm so sorry for the lack of consistency on the posting. Like I said before, I've just been so unbelievably busy, but I will be back to my regular schedule of 1 video a week. And yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I've wanted to talk about the benefits of getting rid of TikTok for such a long time, especially with the TikTok ban being a really recent topic. And I think this is great. And I feel like I've seen more and more people in our generation getting rid of their TikTok or just decreasing their screen time and prioritizing their lives. And I promise you, it's so worth it, guys. Go out there and live your life. Don't forget to leave a like, a comment down below. I'd love to hear about your experience with social media, and I really want to work on creating a fun community. So if you did enjoy this video, please subscribe, and I really hope you'll tune in again soon. Thank you so much for watching. Today's the first day of April. Let this spring be the spring that truly opens up opportunities for you. Get out there and go live your life. Thanks for watching.